Welcome to News with a View, a Fat Cat production. This is March 1st, 2025, and episode 43. I finally got that right. Had a lot of problems with that. All right, we're all strapped in here. I'm John Acosta, hosting News with a View. And in this episode, we're just talking about the Zelenskyy the whole run-in with Trump and what really is, in my opinion, and this is all my opinion, where I inject other opinions, I will say. So let me just go with the rundown. This is Saturday, March 1st. The frustration during the Zelenskyy White House visit was coming for some obvious reasons. And my first observation was Zelenskyy has made comments during the last month about peace coming at a price of NATO membership. 2, comments about no peace agreement without direct Ukraine participation. Comments about the Ukraine territory held by Russia be returned as part of any agreement. Comments about being left in the dark about U.S.-Russian negotiations that took place in Saudi Arabia. Comments made by Zelenskyy about Trump before the elections. Now that's a biggie. And the rare earth mineral deal with Trump as a condition for continued U.S. support. Now that's a factor. President Trump has stated that Ukraine membership in NATO was not going to happen and was not negotiable, which triggered Zelenskyy to make further comments to European nations who have supported the Ukraine, who then put pressure on President Trump. During the White House meeting, President Trump issued a dire warning, a threat to Zelenskyy that Ukraine was on the brink of triggering World War III and does not fully grasp the situation that Ukraine has put the world into. Now, with that, you could say Russia put the world into that situation. But this is really a Ukraine problem. And Zelenskyy, who stated that Russia invaded the Ukraine and could not be trusted to keep its agreement unless Ukraine had protection of NATO membership. Again, something that Trump has taken off the table. I've said it before in other podcasts that Russia felt very strongly about NATO. They see it as a threat, and so would I if I was Putin. Having weapons or boots on the ground in their underbelly, we just have to go to 1963 in the Cuban Missile Crisis to try to put some rationale into what Putin has done. All right? Zelenskyy thought he could negotiate with President Trump as an equal partner, which Trump would never accept. President Trump, as well as Vice President Vance, saw the comments Zelenskyy made in front of the media as a means to corner the White House into a better bargaining position. President Trump knows the key to settling this issue is all about Russia at this point. and the Ukraine does not have the upper hand. Regardless of where they stood militarily in stopping the Russian advances, it's not going to bring anything to the bargaining table in reality. President Trump's frustration is not so much with Ukraine, but with the Biden administration, who failed to do the correct thing with dealing with Russia from the beginning of the crisis, which was NATO membership. Biden dangled NATO membership in front of Russia and the Ukraine. Russia saw this action as a stick and carrot, and Russia did not trust the Biden administration not in the end, to allow Russia. Russia saw this as a stick and carrot and did not trust the Biden, not in the end, to allow NATO membership in, regardless of what Russia felt. So Russia and Putin felt that just the mere mention of NATO membership put them into a war position. That just the thought that you would do something like that, that the United States would do something like that, it concerned them greatly. Russia was committed to stopping this action by force. Russian military commanders assured Putin of a quick victory and suggested that a lightning attack would destabilize the Ukraine and NATO before any Western help could be used to stop the toppling of the Ukrainian government and install a puppet government to negotiate a favorable outcome for Russia. Always been the Russian tactic. We go in under the guise of, we're freeing the oppressed people. They install a government that, of course, is pro-Russia, and as such, Russia gets what they want. We've seen this before. We've seen this tactic in Eastern Europe. This should come as no surprise to anyone. The main issue for Russia was NATO. Had Biden assured Russia that NATO was not a factor unless Russia acted in a hostile manner first against the Ukraine, a compromise could have happened. But again, Russia didn't know who they were dealing with. Were they dealing with Biden? Were they dealing with Pelosi? Were they dealing with Schumer? Were they dealing with a dark element of the government? Because Biden could not be trusted. They had saw that throughout his tenure, that he would have no problem throwing his friends underneath the bus. And if they did that to friends, what would they do that to a foe? So, I've said in my first few episodes that Ukraine would be on the short end of the stick, as they are 100% dependent on the West for survival. The United States and the West can't keep supporting the Ukraine, and Russia can't keep up the fighting. Something has to give. And that give is going to come from the Ukraine. Like it or not, that's what was going to happen. There was very little other than land, some land being given back. The Ukraine coming out of Kursk and Russia pulling back on some of the territory. Crimea was the key. Always was. When Russia gave that back to the Ukraine, that was a huge mistake. And that was a real blunder. But friends and partners can have disagreements. We've had them before, and we have worked through them. Zelensky can repair this rift, and President Trump can be magnanimous about it too. So, really, this was more about Trump going, we're going to control the negotiations because we are the big stick. And we're not going to allow Russia to dictate the terms, but we're not also going to allow the Ukraine to tell us how to dictate the terms. Trump, Zelensky thought they were dealing with Biden. Honestly, they thought they were dealing with a Biden White House. That they would acquiesce and they would, all right, we see your point and we can get there. No, there's none of that with Trump. My way or the highway. I've said this before. That with Trump, for better or for worse, he's going to go ahead with what he thinks common sense will dictate. And in saying that, common sense has been his platform. My common sense might not be your common sense. Your common sense might not be my common sense. But here's the truth. America has elected Donald Trump to be president. As such, he can dictate our foreign policy. There might be a lot of skeptics, and those could be valid questions and valid concerns that they have. And in a democracy, you're allowed to air those concerns and air those grievances. So, no problem with that. None whatsoever. Now, in the Huffington Post, HuffPost, let me just back up. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, on Friday named one giant winner in President Trump's and Vice President J.D. Vance's fiery exchange with President Zelensky. And that is Putin. And McFaul, who served as U.S. ambassador under President Barack Obama, in the interview with MSNBC, Katie Fong. So this is the HuffPost reporting from an MSNBC interview. And the real question now is, was this attack designed or was it a mistake? Because sometimes when I hear President Trump, I think he's doing everything he can to appease Putin and not the American national interest. McFaul's take reflected those shared by right-wing figures who predicted that Russia dictator would benefit from the contentious White House meeting. All right, folks. Again, McFaul was a horrible ambassador under Obama. The Obama administration and Russia sunk to our lowest point of American-Russian cooperation. Hillary Clinton interfered with Putin's election. You think he was going to forget that? I don't think so. Like Trump doesn't forget, Putin doesn't forget. Both these figures, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, are on the same ego level. And that has to be taken into consideration in factoring a strategy to deal with either person. Failure to do so, disastrous. The clash in the Oval Office followed weeks of Trump being increased critical of Zelensky and echoing Putin's talking points. Now, The talking points of Putin was NATO. Would the Biden administration stepped back and really analyzed and said to Putin, what are your concerns? Why are you so worried about the Ukraine? And the answer from Putin was, we don't want NATO. We already have NATO in Poland. We have NATO in all these other countries. And now you're going to put NATO in our underbelly. It's boots on the ground that they did not want there, because they have to counter that. And it's a guns and butter type of economy in Russia. Here, it's a little different. It is guns and butter, but we just tax the people and we go into debt more. Russia is a little bit different. So it's a guns and butter. You're going to take, and I have to give to the military, I got to take away the butter from the people. I can't get the people upset about this. And if it doesn't have to be this way, let's figure out a way around this that would satisfy U.S. concerns and Ukrainian concerns and everyone in the Baltic region. I mean, you have to take a look at the broader picture. Biden thought that he had Putin over a barrel. Putin knew he was dealing with a weak president, one that didn't fully have the true support of the people. And he was right. So he knew he could keep pushing Biden until a new administration came in. Now, let me tell you what would have happened if Harris would have won. By June, we'd be at war over the Ukraine. Now, people could say that you can compare the Ukraine to Czechoslovakia in the late 1930s, 38, 39, where Germany then annexed it and said, well, we're taking it back. This is, Germanian heritage, we're going to take it back. You can make that parallel. And that thrusted us into World War II. I don't know how many people would go today, I'll lose 130 million Americans or 230 million Americans and 600 or 800 million people in Europe and Russia for the Ukraine, who up till the 1980s was, we gave that to Russia. So, are we willing to destroy the world for the Ukraine? And that's what it would come down to. So McFarlane said that he never seen such a colossal failure of American diplomacy as Zelensky left the meeting without a signal, without signaling a deal to provide the U.S. now with its mineral rights. Zelensky, who shook Trump's hand on this deal, knew going in exactly what Trump was doing. And then in front of the cameras, he tried to renegotiate and put Trump on the spot. Now, he knew this was coming. It is very rare, and I'm trying to think of when the last time a vice president sat in with the president on meeting a head of state. in this type of situation. So to me, Trump knew what was coming. And he advanced there to act as the in-between. Vance was going to ask the questions that triggered everything. And it wasn't the president who asked the questions. It was the vice president. Now, was this leading the lamb to slaughter? Might be. But here's the thing with Trump. When you make a deal with me, it's a deal. I will keep my word. If you don't keep your word, I will grind you into the ground, and I will never trust you again. Ever. So Ukraine now has a situation where they thought they were going to deal with like the Biden administration, who rolled on everything. I mean, Biden will go down as the worst president in American history. Not only domestically, but foreign policy. Absolutely the worst. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Republican. I'm saying that is the reality. He took a situation, blew it up, thought that he could pressure Putin. Putin doesn't have to worry about a re-election. He doesn't have to worry about that. He's got all the time in the world. And Biden and his people thought they were going to roll on this guy? What type of advisors did Trump have? I mean, Biden have, that he knew Trump was going to jump all over this. I mean, it is probably where he said, where McFowell said that this was the worst diplomatic failure. No, the worst diplomatic failure was created by Biden and his administration on how to deal with this crisis. And it was an easy crisis to deal with. You send an emissary, you send our ambassador to meet with the Russian ambassador, and you go, I know what our guys are going to be saying and what the Ukraine people are going to say. NATO, NATO, NATO. Let me assure you right now, from the lips of the president, that's not going to happen. This is about grandstanding. Ukraine has to have some saving of face here, just like Russia is going to need saving face. But we're not ever going to allow the Ukraine into NATO, no matter how they press it, how they push it. And we want to make sure that Russia understands this. But as I'm saying this is without you invading Russia, without you invading the Ukraine, or Russia invading any of its neighbors. If you're all about Russian peace and we respect, sovereignty, that's great. You're going to talk it, now walk it. If you fail to do that, if you attack any of your neighbors, we will open the door to not only the Ukraine, but everyone on your border. Everyone. And that's not a threat. We're telling you what's going to happen if you escalate this, because we won't have any choice. So let's all pull back. We are telling you that as of today, you're not crossing over that border, even though you're threatening to. Pull back a little bit. and let's work behind the scenes. I know what Ukraine's screaming about. They could scream all they want. It's you and I that cut the deal. Let's cut the deal. You know, let's not let the puppy yiping over here tell the big dogs how to proceed. We've been down this road before, and we'll get through this together. So, that didn't happen. The problem was that, again, and it's a true problem, that Russia is kind of vague and sketchy on their agreements. But I think in this case, if Putin was going to come back into the fold of Europe, and this was before the invasion, they could have really done it in a spectacular way. Was this McFarlane had stated that he didn't know for sure if this was an ambush on Zelensky, but it sure looked that way. Now, I would agree that that was an ambush, that Trump knew exactly what this guy was going to do. And if he did it, he was going to go ballistic on him. Now, whether or not he told him beforehand, don't do this, this will be very bad. And if you want to get this into the right prospectus, children should not be heard, but seen. Russia and the United States are not children. The Ukraine is a child. And we will speak up for the Ukraine. And Russia can speak up for Russia. Getting them involved into the fray, again, would be the puppy yiping at the big dogs, and the big dogs just both turn around and go, shut up. And Trump saying to Zelensky, you might be willing to start World War III. We're not. We're not going to do it, and we're not going to allow you to do it. And this is the big dog now grabbing a hold of that puppy by its neck and going to enough pressure for that puppy to understand, you don't do this. And you don't do this in my house. Now, President Trump invited Zelensky into our house to sit at our table, to eat our food, in a sense, take our money. And what Zelensky did was come to our house, hug us, eat our food, and then proceed to shit on our floor. And going, thanks. Where do you think you can get off doing that? And if you don't think, and this goes to Ukraine, anyone that's watching this, that if I'm the guy keeping you around, when I tell you to nod your head yes, you nod your head yes. When I tell you to nod your head no, you nod your head no. And that's the way in the real world it works. You might not like it, but you had no problem taking about $1 trillion from us. And I've said this for years. My bitch does what I tell her to do. Now, if you're not my bitch, you don't have to do what I tell you to do. But when you're my bitch, you'll do what I tell you to do. I can't make it any more simpler for you people. And McFowle said maybe it was played well with their base, but it's not going to play well with the American people. And that's where I think Trump needs to pump the brakes a bit. Who pointed to polling showing that most Americans don't trust Putin. Well, I agree with that statement up to a point. We elected Donald Trump. As such, he runs foreign policy. And the American people could go, we don't trust Russia, we don't. Matters not. You voted already. So, what you see is what you're getting. And while I agree that most Americans look at Russia in general and Putin with a jaundiced eye, now if you're Italian, you know what that means. You go like this, and it means, I know that you know what I know, what you know, I know. Very Sicilian. I think President Trump will be able to explain to the American people his actions in a way that his base will be satisfied with. By Donald Trump doing what he did, and President Trump and Vice President Vance doing what they did, will show the world, friend and foe, that the U.S. will stand behind its words, and that this administration will not be cornered by friend or foe into negotiations that they feel will not interest the United States. So this was a very telling message to everyone that you think you control the game? No, you don't control the game. We control the game. And that if you think you're going to come and tell me how to play this game that I created, that I make, that I control, nope, whether you're a friend or you're a foe, not doing it. And we are not afraid to call our friends out on the carpet and go, we're not doing that. Don't care what you're screaming and yelling about. We're not doing it. If we will tell friends that, can you imagine what we'll do to our enemies? So this sends a real message that don't think you can push this president around, or this administration around, or this White House around. Because you're not doing it. Not a friend and not a foe. Very well calculated by President Trump. And you'll have the liberal media, oh, they insulted our friend. Look what Biden did to our friends. Abandoned them. So, you know what? Me telling my friend, hey, screw you, you're not doing this. I'm not allowing it. If you want to do that, go out on your own and do it. I'm not standing behind you going, if you touch him, you touch me. You're not going to have that protection anymore. That's gone. And in the Ukraine case, the people could be all upset and go, how could they do this to us? How could they treat us this way? I get it. But when you're dependent on me for everything, then you're going to have to be dependent on me to get you out of this mess. And this mess was created by Joe Biden. And now it's my turn. It's my job to change the freaking diapers, wipe the ass clean, put powder on, and make sure you don't get diaper rash. And you're asking the American people to pay for that. Well, guess what? Then you got to do what I tell you to do. And that's why I support Trump in his move here. I might not have gone down that road, but in the end, this was the right move to do in the right situation. He showed friend and foe. You don't get to push me around. So, with this, it's going to be like a 35-minute Saturday night, March 1st, episode 43. I finally got my episodes down. I have no idea. I'm not a smart man. And I got confused on my dates and my episodes. I don't know why, because I got everything listed in order. And I try to be as practical as I can. My notes. And lately, not so good, so I'm seeing that I have to get a little bit better with my organization and rushing. It's me doing everything, and I'm going to tell you, to put on a 1-hour show, I'm putting in 6-7 hours of work. And my channel is not monetized. Not yet. But I do it because I like doing it. And I think the public, and you don't have to agree with me, and I stress this, you don't have to agree with me. Talking to you, Bob, in New York. You don't have to agree with me. But facts are facts. Now, this is an opinion piece. So, except in the HuffPost part where I read from, the rest is all opinion piece. And I try not to get my opinion out there because, what do I know? Opinions all stink. But I am putting facts towards it. And there's a logical base to go to, and you can go to your logical base and go to and draw a different conclusion. So, but this is the first real blow-up of foreign policy that I've seen since maybe Nixon. And maybe even before that, Kennedy. So this is a big to-do, but you're looking at what's at stake here. Sometimes you got to be a little harsh, a little tough love. All right, with that, I'm going to say goodnight. As always, I ask everyone to give to charity. Do what you can do. Charity begins at home. It's my phone. And do what you can do. But always give to a registered charity. And those charities will not reach out to you. You must reach out to those charities. Don't be a victim, helping a victim. My other request is that everyone says a prayer. People that are in trouble, people that need help. Lord, hear my prayer. You might not think it does anything, but it does. And with that, I'm going to say